Okay, next up we've got Adrian. Alright, bio. Adrian is an award-winning writer and public historian. His most recent poetry collection, Barangay, an Offshore Poem, was named one of the best Canadian poetry collections in 2021 by CBC Books.
Let's go!
Yeah, his non-fiction debut, Bundok, A Hinterland History of Filipino America, will be published in December 2023 by the University of North Carolina Press. For the time being, he lives down the street on Temple Avenue in Hi-Fi, and teaches Asian American Studies at the University of Southern California. In 2024, he will move back to the East Coast as a professor of U.S. and Philippine history at New York University. Come on up, Adrian.
Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
It is great to be celebrating with you specifically, but all of you, but specifically you. I thought I would read some new stuff, but like, since you're writing about water, I wanted to read some poems about rivers and childhood trauma, which is very Filipinx.
Yes!
Right? So, I got y'all. And
Did we write the same book?
TBH, we've been collaborating on the same book. Like, this is our first time meeting in person, but like I've known you like for all my life, right? Okay, here's some poems from Barangay about rivers and childhood trauma, and a love poem at the end. It's gonna be a very queer kind of like set list. It'll be amazing. But the last thing I want to say is that this is my second time reading at Sunday Jump, and I just love being like, I'm so happy to be back here. I'm glad to be back here, post Panini or whatever that means. But like a backstory, I'm not going to read it today because it doesn't quite fit the theme well. But I wrote a poem like up the street at Tribal Cafe, I think at 11 a.m. once, and it was a Sunday, and I Googled, and I'm just like, yeah, I want to go to a Filipino event. And then Sunday Jump was like down in Glendale, and I was like, and that was my first time I ever went to Sunday Jump. And so one of the poems for Barangay was written for Sunday Jump. But I'm not reading it today, if we have time maybe. Once, Barangay sighed along the Pasig, where reeds shook in the wake, where shanty shores now stilt, whetstone bolos waded through billowing fish. Once, Pasig churched from the same gasps that stretched these sails. Once, mga tala pooled to sweep us here. These next four are called ilog, which means river in Tagalog. Isa, a circumcision. At bedtime, my father liked to trace the rush of the Tenejero River into my homeland dreams. I crouched on the shore and watched the leeches lurch the gnawing soil a foot from my not yet calloused toes. Upstream, boys bawled at the quack doctor's cleaver before he shoved guava leaves into their mouths. Mamoyak ka. Chew until mush. Tumura ka sa titi mo. The Rouge River has no shamans, not anymore, just urologists, or whom to play up your pain. Binata ka na. Di ka na support, anak. The boy becomes a man between my legs and asks if adulthood had to hurt. Dalawa. Before the return, my parents lighted us away to another river. The asphyxiated sun browned my skin as the Pasig against the ruined stilts of Riverside Barangay. I dreamed the bubbling waters, the shanty towns into the fjords that lead to Tarusak. Perhaps I'd finally find the strong winding arms in Bataan, the Tenejero. This place could not be my home until I plunged my waist at the depths. The leeches I'd name across the ocean pierced into my flesh to bleed me better from the bruise now mine of Tatay's heels. Tatlo. The Tenejero at Tatay's leech-filled waters loved me in the night, groveled through the tar, the banks, revenants shrieking below the overpass, without the releases of meeting its mother, sea. Apat, vigil. How do we remember a river buried? Deep breath for a second. Philippine studies. On a fresh week for rage, my father scattered open garbage cans across my bedroom floor. I had dreamed I was back in Taguig, sifting through sheet metal in the alley behind the quail egg stand. A rusted, corrugated corner pierced a bag of rancid chicken before my eyes stung open from the same stench. Years before, leather lashed at my flesh, and I reveried bloody-knuckled ways to forgive each crack. Instead, I supposed that it was the rattan of alabaster nuns beating me through the Father's wrist, or the hooks whipping welts on the spine of Christ, raw repentance into clotting, dirt-dyed skin. When the lashes stopped, new punishments, creative labors all sprung from his mind. Guilt-gilded yard work in the parish I never asked for. Lifelong labor taxes for the upkeep of the pastor indoors. Or this morning, kitchen compost dispersed like us across my floor. The burden of sensing the homeland. Later that week, we gathered written scraps of property around the dining table to stitch into my parents' will. I inherited his freckles, but couldn't distinguish which came from father and which came from son. I got two more.
Wow.
So this one's a love poem, you know, when you're crushing on your first guy and you're just like, ah, all right, cute, right? Anyway, it's called Kundiman. Tugan. At Victoria Park, I watched you erupt above the surface, hardening into an island. In Honolulu, you found Savaii and the Nihon you never thought you'd hear from beyond the dead. When the seabed grabs your ankles, you let it wash you west. You'd fall in love with Edsa, the slow gray currents that carry the city around like river sludge. Or you'd meet our mother mountain, once a perfect cone, the smoking pencil scribbling tales into the sky. Tugang. When you see this poem, maybe Manila's screeching steel could by instinct fill your lungs with air. Or maybe you might rustle in the fallen malunggay, make believing the oak and birch of home, though incomplete, like love. I got one more. And it's all in Ilocano, and I'm not going to translate. Barangay. Inam. Anyone understand Ilocano? Yeah. Yes. We gotta talk. We don't kick you out there. Yeah. Ti barangay mi. Agsao kan daubing ni Amianan kan the Cordillera ni Cagayan kan sa Isabela makaawatan mi dagiti bakras sa dino makasin na ba kami. Thank you and congrats.